Do you record your own demos at home? If you're not, why is that? It's something that lots of people do, and it's not prohibitive like it used to be. You can actually get started for $100. That's right, $100. All you need is just a computer that can handle the software, which, let's be honest, most computers, if it's relatively new, can handle the software, and patience. So how do you get started for $100? Well, I'm going to tell you. I'm also going to give you a basic workflow if you've never actually recorded before. I'm going to give you 5 steps of how you can get started. And at the end, I got a couple bonus tips for you as well. So the $100 is actually going to go to buy a audio interface device. This is going to be something that you can plug your primary instrument into. Usually it's going to be guitar or bass. If you're a drummer, recording drums is considerably more difficult, but there are still ways that you can program drums and at least be able to capture your thoughts through that. We'll get more into that later. But the audio interface device that you need is actually kind of an important decision. There are a number of companies out there that make these devices. They range all the way down from, like I said, about $100 to thousands and thousands. There are devices out there that are cheaper that will allow you to hook your instrument up to a computer, but they're very, very basic. They don't come with the software that you need. And honestly, that's part of where that $100 is going towards, is the software package that you get. There's a couple specific ones I'm going to recommend you look at. First is the PreSonus Audio Box, which does have a model that is typically $99. Right there at the $100 mark. The other one is the Focusrite, which usually comes in a little bit higher, about $110 for the base model. Now, what I would suggest is look at what your actual budget is. If you do have a little bit more money, take a look at the other models that are a little bit higher, or look at the bundle options that they have. I got a audio box bundle that comes with a condenser mic for vocals and a pair of headphones. In fact, I'm actually recording this voiceover on that condenser mic and listening through those headphones. All right, so once you've gotten your audio interface, you've got your software installed, you're ready to go, you might be ready to start recording, you've got something you're working on, but there's probably a question of what now? What are the steps? How do I even begin? Do I just start recording? Well, not necessarily. There is a workflow, and I'm going to give you a basic workflow you can follow to get started. Now, this is not the workflow that would be used by professional sound engineers. This isn't even the workflow that would probably be used by most musicians that have been recording demos for a while. But for you, having just gotten your first audio interface, just getting into demo recording, this is actually a pretty good workflow for you to follow while you learn. All right, first, get organized. Don't jump into a recording without having an idea what you're going to be doing, right? You need to know what you're going to record. Is it multiple parts? Is it a single part? Are there changes? What kind of tones do you want to go for? Is it something that's clean, or are you going to want distortion or some sort of delay? What's the time signature of the song? Is it in 4/4? Is it in an odd time? Does it switch between the parts? As well as the tempo. What's your BPM? Make sure you know that. Also know if there's any changes, because you're going to want to record to a click, and the only way to do that is if you know the beats per minute. Okay, next. Once you've gotten organized and you know what you're going to record, you're going to record a scratch track. What's a scratch track, you might ask? It is getting the idea down. You want to play it good enough. You want to play it to the click, so that way it's in time, but it doesn't need to be perfect. It is designed to be scrapped later on. My next suggestion is to program out a drum beat. What's great about these software packages that are included is that there's so many things you can do. And a good example of that is the MIDI drum capability. You can actually program out drums using a MIDI interface, and it's all digital. It's all within the actual program. This part definitely takes a little while to understand, that when you're hitting a note on this virtual keyboard that it may translate to a drum hit. But once you get that figured out and you understand how the mapping works, then you can start programming out the drums the way you want to hear them. They're going to sound robotic. They're not going to sound real. That's fine. Once you understand the concept really well, and once you've been programming drums for a while, then you may want to go and upgrade and buy something like Steven Slate drums, which is what I use, which actually has really realistic sounding drums, but use the built-in MIDI capabilities to start programming the drums. And this may take a while. Now that you've got your scratch track and your drums programmed out, it's time to get rid of that scratch track. You're going to re-record that line to the drums, and you're going to try to make this your final track. course, you may go back and change it. That's very natural, but you got to think about this track as the one that's going to be perfect. Normally, you would do bass next no matter what, but for you want to get the track down that you're the most comfortable with, which is more than likely whatever you did your scratch track for, your primary instrument. You can use your scratch track as a reference while you listen back and while you play. If you need to do that, that's fine, but you want to play the live drums and try to be on grid as best you can. Once that's done, I would mute that scratch track. You don't need to get rid of it necessarily, but mute it, leave it out of the mix, and start playing to your quote-unquote final tracks for all the other tracks that's coming up. And that's the next step, is record the rest of the instruments. If you are laying down different guitars, if you're a guitar player and you're laying down bass, if you want to get involved with vocals, now's the time. The last step is all of the layers. And this is probably going to be the most fun part and the most frustrating, because you've got ideas, you want to lay them down, you might start messing around with different MIDI instruments to see what it sounds like with strings or whatever else, and then you realize it sounds terrible, and you delete all of it, and you start over again. That's fine. That's what this phase is for. Have fun, experiment, see what sounds good, and learn while you're doing it. Just make sure that you keep your bass layer, your drums, your primary instrument that replaces scratch track, and you can just have fun with the rest of it while you learn. If you're getting something out of this video so far, make sure to give it a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. But now I want to give you 3 bonus tips while you're going through this process. First, don't go crazy with your tone. There's a lot of built-in amplifiers and effects pedals and things like that, and some of them sound better than others. Again, this is going to be kind of part of the original package, so they may not sound great. But that's okay, because you can always upgrade your sounds later. But the biggest thing I would say as you're getting started is, even if you know you want the final tone to be really overdriven or with a lot of effects and flanger and delay and things like that, don't record that way at first. Make sure your tone is as clear as possible. Distortion's okay, but don't overdrive it so much that you can't actually tell the individual notes. Give it a little bit of grit, and you can change it later. You can go play with all of the amps, you can play with all the settings, you can play with all the pedals after you've actually recorded. That's the best time to actually go twist the knobs on all your virtual gear. Okay, next tip. Breaking things up is okay. You do not have to do everything in one clean take. In fact, don't. Make sure you're using the software as it's designed, where you can play just the verse, get it once, copy and paste. Play just the chorus, get it fine, copy and paste. Sometimes you might actually need to split it up. You might only be able to get half the verse really clean and then the other half of the verse. That's okay. Obviously, if you were in a professional studio of something that was going to be released broadly, you would want to be able to actually play that all the way through. You would want to be able to not have to copy and paste. But you're learning. Utilize the software. Get your idea down, get it down cleanly, copy and paste as you need to. It's okay. And the last tip is actually, when you are recording in different phases and you're breaking things up, don't worry about punching in and out. Punching in and out is a great tool, and it's very common in recording studios to use that feature, but for you, you're just learning. Don't do that, because there's actually some risk if you don't know what you're doing, where you can delete done takes already, then you have to go undo and restore. Instead of worrying about that, just duplicate your track. So you have 2 tracks with all the same settings and bounce back and forth. You get done with one section, don't worry about that track. Go to your second track, record your next section. And as you're recording, just bounce back and forth between those 2 tracks. You can clean it all up later. You can add crossfades as appropriate. So don't worry about the punching in and punching out yet. All of that stuff you can learn later. But right now, you just want to get going. You want to be able to use the software and actually record something and have it sound pretty good on the back end. Focus on that. Now, you may be asking, why haven't you shown me anything about the specific software? And the reason is because I don't know what specific audio interface you're going to get. Each one has a different software bundle. So I can't show you specifically how to use it. In fact, I use Logic, which is like a $200 program. You're going to be using what comes with the interface. But YouTube is your friend. All of these software bundles, there are plenty of tutorials out there to show you how to actually record, to show you how to connect your device, to make sure that you're getting a clean sound. follow those. Those tutorials are your friend. What I'm here is to provide you with the basic knowledge of what you need to know and a workflow, because a lot of times the tutorials are telling you how to do one specific thing, but they're not taking a step back and saying, well, how should you record a demo, period? Of all the tips that I've given you today, I'm curious, what is the one that you think is the most impactful? Drop a comment, let me know. And of course, give this video a like if you got something out of it. If you haven't subscribed, be sure to do that. You keep making beautiful music, and I will see you in the next video.